Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryang Karawavahe Tejasvina Vadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Arjuna's question was to Krishna, how do I gain that final fulfillment, which we're all seeking? And Krishna explained to him, to give him some pointer. He said, before that final fulfillment takes place, it's not just a matter of receiving the highest knowledge and then expecting that knowledge to click, but there's a process to it. And Krishna said the process involves, firstly, we need to address some of our psychological barriers. And this is actually a starting point for most. For example, sometimes we're grown up in a culture and the culture trains us to act in a particular way or to see the Upanishads or the Gita in a certain way. So then by the time we grow up, we don't quite understand the Upanishads of the Gita because we're grown in a culture that hasn't taught us really the importance of what it's actually saying, but it's more like chanting and just repeating the mantras. But it also goes further. Sometimes it is, I can't. That means we take a cultural belief that I can't, it's just not possible for me. Or teachers in our school, they tell us, no, you can't do this. You're not as good as other kids. So we carry this psychological dilemma into our life. And then we take it into the teaching, which holds us back. So if I say something and it's important, then we say to ourselves, well, this doesn't apply to me, or it's not, I just don't get it. I don't understand it. It's not possible for me to grasp it. So this means there is a level of confidence that we need as a person. The second is, once that psychological has been addressed sufficiently, we're not saying completely, because there's always going to be psychological issues that are going to arise here and there. So it's not like full life into psychology, into mind, into and so on. The second is the nature of the individual. And this is where what we were speaking of last week, whereby once I have taken care of my mind, I need to look at who is this person that's always been true, that has been true in the past, present, and the future, and that will still be in 20 years true from now. And in 20 years from now, we'll look back on today and we'll have a memory of different events that took place, but that person who's there 20 years from now will still know I am, as much as that same person knows I am right now, as much as that same person knew I am 20 years ago. So there's always this presence, the I am presence, in whose presence all of this person's thoughts are illumined. That means it's like putting a light bulb in a room, and whatever goes on in the room, and argument goes in the room, and then some happy conversations going on in the room, and then some philosophy happens in the room. So none of that affects the light, and it is only because of the light that all of the things in the room can be seen in the first place. So even though the light is independent of the events in the room, it is only because of the light in the room that we can actually see what is going on in the room. So in that same way, this presence that we were speaking of is that presence in whose presence all of my thoughts, memories, the entire life of Andre and the entire life of you is illumined. And we said that this presence is, there's different names for it, but we use the word awareness. But the other name for it is chit. Chit means consciousness. So chit and awareness are used interchangeably. And the nature of this chit, this consciousness, is sat. So this is why we say sat chit ananda. So the sat means that which is true, unchanging, permanent. In other words, this consciousness, this chit, this presence is in its nature true. It is eternal. It is unborn. Because it is unborn, it cannot thus die. That's why it's eternal. And then we said, even though we get this knowledge and we go, okay, cool, I kind of understand now what's this presence, then there's still a doubt. And the majority of that doubt, in fact, 99% of the doubt that continues even after hearing this knowledge, is because we haven't looked at the nature of the universe. This means we haven't looked at an important component which still brings doubt, because I still find myself as a person and I go, how can I be the truth of everything when I still find myself in this big, vast universe? How do you explain this universe? So that's what we're going to do today. After that has been addressed, then it still doesn't stop there, because there's still a relative person who will probably get bored. They will say, well, now I know the individual, the nature of I know the nature of the universe, but what about my life for the next 20 years that I have to live? What do I do? So the fourth category is we have to see what is our role, how can we contribute in this world till the last breath. Otherwise, life becomes extremely boring and just dry, and you don't want to live a life like that. So all these four need to be handled for the total vision, for this clarity, which is not a one-off. This is why it's not a future event, as Kritika was just explaining now. It's not a future event that's supposed to happen. It is like building a brick, like a house, brick by brick. We don't know it's taking place, but it is taking place through our own contribution, through our own effort. That's why we call it a growing clarity. It's not a one-off clarity. It is a growing clarity. So this means that every action counts. Why does every action count? Because of the law of cause and effect. For every cause that I put out, for every attempt to listen, there is some effect that will be rewarded, if not now, certainly in 1 year, 5 years, even 10 years from now. In other words, every action counts. The important clarification I also wanted to bring up is what Mauktik brought up. And he brought up this idea of limitation. The common misconception is, going back to that cup example, suppose this is a wise cup, and the cup understands that the principle that is illuminating my mind, my memories, my thoughts, including the presence of this body, is this presence, this Sat Chit presence. Now, the common misconception is that a enlightened person, that a jnani, a jivan muktaha, is the one who is in some kind of a bliss. They're experiencing themselves as limitless. This is the biggest problem and holdback for most students. So we have to make that correction. There is still the presence of a cup. So this presence will produce an apparent limitation as long as this cup is alive. In other words, a wise person still experiences apparent limitation of the mind and the body. They will still say, oh, I have pain and I forgot and I have a short-term memory and so on. Whereas for a person who hasn't ascertained this knowledge, the nature of I, category number 2, they will only experience themselves as this limitation of the cup. That will be their entire reality. Whereas for a wise person, they will experience the limitation of a cup. However, only to their knowledge, it is as good as saying it is apparent. However, in actuality, the limitation only destroys itself when the body dies one day. That is when you can say, officially, I am now free of apparent limitation. Okay, so in other words, the space inside here is not different from the total limitless space. Only to the presence of the cup, that is the body and the mind, there will seem like there is an apparent limitation, and it is experienced by a wise person no different than anyone else on the street or anywhere else you see. Okay, that's a yes, Mauktik.
Like I had another question on this, because in the what I meant by limitation is, I have this knowledge, I know everything, that okay, that I am more than the body and the mind, but still I do have self doubts about myself. So why is these things happening?
So the question was, even though I know the reality of myself is the same reality of everything else, there is still a doubt, right? The reason for that is because the knowledge, as I said before, it is a growing clarity. It is not something that is a one-off and it's go, okay, now I am good for life. It continues. That's why even a Vedantic person, even if they have this knowledge, they will still study, they will still get involved, just like an ordinary student. I'll give you a real life example. Take any subject here that you want to learn. I'm learning how to play piano. And at the beginning, there's tons of doubts. Like, can I, where's the keys? Where's the A, B, C, D, E? And at the beginning, there was so many doubts. But now as I'm practicing little by little, those doubts are still there, but they're a lot less than when I first began. So same thing with self-knowledge. The more you get involved, the more doubts leave. So now if we stop at category number 2, as I said, the knowledge is incomplete and those doubts will continue. So let's now talk about category number 3, the nature of the universe. And we will talk about what is the nature of the universe. So let's just open a dispassionate inquiry, a geeky inquiry, and I will tell you about some laws within the universe that are operating, and you can just sort of tune in and, tune in the channel and listen or take some notes. So let's start with your human body. What is your human body? It is a collection of many, many billions of cells right now. We're not talking about tomorrow, right now. So just think of your body right now. Think of how many things are working in your body to make everything function and to perceive this information and to actually make this information meaningful and to even say, is this worth listening? Where is this going? What is this? How does this apply to me? What's the context of this? All of this is now being taken for granted, and yet it is happening without your intervention. So the neurons in your brain, right? Many, many neurons are now firing, and they're causing you to coordinate every fraction of the moment to understand and to interpret data around you in your environment, in your room right now. For example, Luciana is now drinking. There's a sensation of hotness, and that hotness is being interpreted by the brain, what it means. If it's too hot, then you move away the cup, and how fast you move away and what it means. All of this is being done at its own accord. So you don't participate in anything you're doing now. You're just basically sitting down and you're hearing my voice, and there's an experience of the teaching. And that experience is taking place of its own accord. Or if you think about your placement of your organs, like why is the heart not, in your leg or, maybe in your shoulder? Just think about that, that intelligence behind placing the organs where they're supposed to be so that it can create a functioning human being. Well, think about your 5 fingers. Why do you not have 6 fingers or 4 fingers? Why exactly 5? 5 fingers, 5 koshas, 5 senses, right? So there's this intelligence about 5 in this case, the 3 states, the waking, dreaming, deep sleep. You got the 3 gunas, right? So there's a certain correlation between realities if we look into them. Or even more advanced right now, not only is your brain interpreting this, but there's also a sophisticated component called inference. Now, what is inference? It just means that the brain is able to deduce improbable causes. So if you look at over a mountain and you see some smoke, your brain doesn't go, well, that smoke is because 2 people are arguing, or that smoke is because, ants are walking on the ground. Your brain deduces, it removes all of those improbable causes, and it says it is because of fire. And this happens by itself. You don't make this process you don't do this process in your brain. It just happens. Or now let's just take, for example, the biologists' view, how they look at life. So the biologists say that life started 3.5 plus minus billion years ago. It started as a single cell organism, and then it turned into a multicellular organism. Now we just say here, single cell, multicell, but how many events in between took place to actually make that happen? And who knows how it actually came to be? We don't know. We can only say single cell, multicell. And that multi-cell then later developed capacity to see, to perceive the environment which it finds itself in, to digest food, that is to digest other cells, and convert that cell energy into an energy that it can sustain itself from, to live. And then it is endowed with a self-reflective ability that causes it to think about the environment it finds itself in, but also to know that its thinking process belongs to I am. So just look at this nice order here. How many, components are involved to make this happen? Or now let's give you some, I'm just getting your brain, a little bit warmed up, some things to think about. Let's think about some laws and orders in this universe. Now, often I've been saying about gravity, that's one of the orders, and that's easy to understand. But I want to introduce some other geeky concepts to think in a different way. Take, for example, physical order. What is a physical order within the universe? It is the order that governs the positions of the stars, galaxies, and celestial bodies. In other words, it puts celestial bodies in a meaningful place in relation to each other. Take the sun, for example, our own sun. Just take the sun right now. What does the sun do? Many functions, obviously, but let's just take one of them. The sun helps to sustain living bodies, your body, because of the sun. So why is that? Because the position of the sun relative to the earth makes that possible. That means the sun is neither too close to burn up everything, neither too far to cause excessive coldness, but just right. So there is some kind of intelligence. It's not an accident that it's just placed like that. Furthermore, the sun provides light. And this light helps the vegetable kingdom to create energy through a process of photosynthesis. In other words, the vegetable kingdom are endowed with photosynthesis so that it can interact or can consume the energy of the sun and thus feed the plants. And then the plants can then feed the living organisms like the animals and the human kingdom. Or living bodies, living organs, any kind of living organism on earth, it then digests that plant. So this means the living organisms are made so they can consume the plant energy. And the plants are made so they can consume the sun energy. So there's a chain, there's an intelligence at every level that we're speaking of. So there's a connection, there's a law which connects one organism to be able to interact with another organ. It's not just some random connection. For example, the human is dependent on air and food. And the human has the ability through its lungs, through small holes in the lungs, to take the oxygen and help the body to sustain itself. So that also, the lungs themselves are also a design which is able to interact with the air itself. Or you take we're still in the physical, you take the apparent paradox or the chaos in quantum physics of the electron. So in quantum physics, if you look at an electron, you can't categorically state that it is either a wave or a particle, because it depends on the intention of the observer. If you observe the electron, its behavior acts as a particle. If you try to ascertain its position, but the electron acts as a wave if you try to ascertain its speed. So in quantum physics, this non-definitiveness of any object is also in itself an order, the physical order. Or let's take, for example, biological orders. So now we're talking about biological orders. What is a biological order? It is the order that determines the nature of living organisms. So right now, there's a biological order that is causing you to stay alive as a person. including the structure of the organism, that is how it is to be formed, the function of the organism, that is how the organs within itself are to function and how they're to interact within themselves, how it is to grow, that means in what order it is to grow, how fast it is to grow. Like a child, it's not going to grow too fast nor too slow, but just in the right way, just in the right speed. If a child grows too fast, it experiences too much pain, or something's going to cause internal damage. So there's an ideal speed to the growth. There's the origin. That means where is the species going to originate? What two species should come together and copulate in order to produce a new species? And in what geographical regions it is to originate? That there is evolutionary aspect of this biology. That means if you look at science, for example, 14 billion years ago, 13.7, as the scientists say, then all of the biology that took place in itself has underwent an evolutionary process. According to the geography, according to the temperature, according to the adaptability of the environment, according to the distribution. What is distribution? If you look at the African elephants in Africa, they move every year between June and November north. Now, does an elephant need to schedule that in its calendar and say, okay, it's June time, let's head north, boys? No, it just automatically senses June's coming, let's move north to a more hospitable environment. In other words, there's an intelligence that tells the elephants to move. They don't have to learn this. Hey, Siri elephant, remind me on June to move. No. Siri got activated, sorry. And then there's taxonomy. Taxonomy is the classification of species. Now, without getting too much into this, because I can only see your faces going, oh my goodness. Let's move on. So there's now suborders of the biological orders. And one of those suborders is the biochemical order. This biochemical order establishes the chemistry of life. Then there is the molecular order. This order coordinates the interactions between biological molecules. Then there is the cellular order. This enables the building blocks of life, that is the cell. So the cell itself has an order of itself. In fact, there is an institution designed entirely to study the cell. And there's this huge volumes of information just about how the cell and what is inside the cell develops. Then there is physiological orders. This arranges the internal organs like your liver, your kidneys in the right place so that the entire organism can work, including distribution of your circulatory and of your respiratory system. Then there is ecological order. This is where the organism interacts with how is the organism to interact with the environment? Right? How is its behavior going to interact with a particular environment that it finds itself or associated with? That's ecology. Then there is genetic order, the order which connects the bodies to past generations. In other words, what is that order that carries over hundreds of generations before into the person that you are today, the body that you are today? That is the order of genetics. Then there is the psychological order, that is controlling our emotions. Then there is the epistemological order, that is the ability to know or not know. And not only to know, but to have the meaning behind what I know. This is the order used in philosophy. If I see something, I have to not only know it, but I have to know what does it mean to know it. Then there are two more orders, which are not mentioned in science. But they are mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita and the Upanishads. And that is the law of dharma. What is this? When I say law of dharma, it is the order or the law of ethics. The law of ethics makes me understand what is right and wrong. In other words, I can't physically observe it. You can't physically find anywhere with a microscope, where is this dharma? But we can all sense it. How? We all know inherently, I don't want to be hurt. And we all know others also don't want to be hurt. You don't need to learn this. It comes ingrained. So this is the law of dharma. We all know I want to be spoken truth. I want you to tell me the truth. And I also know you also want to hear the truth. The moment I'm told a lie, how do I feel? How do you feel when someone's telling you a lie? You don't feel coherent with that moment. So that means the dharma has been violated in that moment. Now, what's the purpose of law of dharma? The purpose is so that the human being who finds himself or herself in many of these physical orders that I explained knows how to conduct oneself within those orders. If I didn't know how to conduct myself, if I didn't come with dharma, then we will find ourselves go, oh, let me just, cut my hand. Let me open up my hand and see what's inside so I can study the biological orders. But we don't do this. Why do we still carry on with our lives when something's not going very well? Why do we just not, commit suicide? Because dharma is still operational. It says, continue, try to resolve this, try to find a way. So this is dharma speaking. Now, because humans are endowed with free will, this means they have the capacity to exercise this dharma or to violate this dharma. Now, the question is, how do I know if I have violated dharma? Because what is dharma? Law of ethics. What is right and what is wrong? How do you know what is right or wrong? You have to be endowed with law of karma. That means the law of consequence. So this means when I do something, then I get feedback. That feedback will let me know whether what I did was right or wrong. How will I know? Because if the feedback has caused suffering or pain, then what I did a day ago was not in line with the law or the order of dharma. So this law of dharma and law of karma is also endowed for every individual, also the species in a certain way. For example, you can have a hippopotamus and a crocodile, unless they're not pissing off each other, but they'll kind of get along there in a same river, but they're not going to just attack each other for no reason. So this is also dharma at the level of animals. Now, this law of karma and dharma is actually a lot harder to understand than the law of physical orders. The reason is because to understand them, just put it in a context of your own life. Take, for example, biological order. 13.7 billion years ago today's species are a result of 13.7 billion years ago. So this means the biology went through a series of changes according to the weather conditions, to the glaciers changing, to the climate change, to adaptability in the geographical regions. All of that also contributed to the biological order, genetical order. And thus the species of today are a result of the many variables that took place. In that same way, the law of karma and the law of dharma shapes you as a person today. So this means all of the connections that as a person I have done in my life, not only this life, but all lives, the person I am today is a result of those connections. That means the connections of the things that I did and the feedback systems that have told me whether I did right or wrong and whether I corrected it. If I didn't correct something, then today, 10 years later, I am still suffering the consequences because I have not listened to the law of karma, the law of consequence. Now, the common objection that you will hear is life is chaotic, right? So yeah, it's all just chaos. The reason we hear this is because the person who says that does not understand that there is an order behind that chaos. For example, we often say that a cyclone is one big massive calamity. But if you think about it, a cyclone is perfectly predictable by a meteorologist. Not only the origin of where it's to begin, but also the speed that it's to travel, the duration that it's to last. So this predictability obviously lets us know that behind this apparent calamity, there is an order on the basis of karma and dharma. That is on the basis of cause and effect. If something took place, for example, a big massive volcano blew up and it changed the weather conditions, then that is also going to change the possibility of a cyclone other half side of the world. So there is this connection, cause and effect. So where is this all now going? Why did I say all this? If you take all of these examples, these laws and these orders that are operating right now, keeping you functioning as a person, keeping this world functioning as it is, there is an extraordinary ingenuity of intelligence needed to coordinate all of them simultaneously for every single individual, both sentient and insentient. To keep track of everything, there is this ingenious intelligence that is present. So it's not a matter of believing there is an intelligent cause, but it's a matter of recognizing this intelligence is right here, right now, making this world function as it is. Now, the dilemma with science is that they say in order to understand the universe, you have to understand different orders. Like we have to understand the physics order, the order at the quantum physics level, the order of biology, and then we can understand the universe. But one thing they cannot do is they do not know from whence or from where these orders came from. The intelligence that makes these orders for what they are. So this is where the Upanishads and the Gita says, they say that the cause of the universe is in the form of all knowledge, all power. So now let's investigate, how is that so? What is this all knowledge, all power? And we will begin by asking, where is this all knowledge, all power that we speak of? Now, the easiest way is to postulate this cause. We'll call it God for now. We'll just call this cause the God and say it's elsewhere. It's in another location. So the general understanding is if you take, I'll just hold on. A pot. Suppose you take a pot like this. Now you say, well, there is a creator of this pot, right? Because someone made this pot. But where is that creator? Is he here? No, he's elsewhere. What do I see? I only see the object called a pot, but I do not see the pot maker. So we take this example and we apply it to the general, how it actually is for most of us. We say, well, because this entire world, I see different forms like this pot, but I do not see the pot maker. So then what do I assume? He is elsewhere. Thus I place God in a different location, just like I place the pot maker. But not only that, if you look at this pot and you go, well, it's got flowers, it's got a nice shape there. It's a really beautiful pot, right? And you go, you know, in order to create this, whoever made this has to be extremely smart. So then what happens? We superimpose ideas according to my perception, what kind of attributes the maker would have to have in order to create this kind of object. So then I turn God into one big attribute-full person who's able to create a world of different objects. Now, there's 4 logical problems that get created if we put God into a different dimension, into a different place. Suppose you say God is in heaven. What kind of logical problems does this create? I want to ask you. God is in heaven.
Is an object.
Yep. Anything else?
You've placed a boundary for God?
Yes, you place the boundary because he's an object. Because object implies boundary.
If God is there, then he can't be here.
Yeah, good. Okay, one more?
Yeah, it would imply that something else would have had to have created that God.
Oh, like that one. Okay, good, good. Anything else?
Maybe we can say that we are like, the God is like the ringmaster and we are just part of the circus.
Yeah. That's an expression.
And I guess maybe the time limitation, as in if somebody, a god who was elsewhere, created the universe like long back, so that would sort of imply, or he can't be right now.
Yeah,
He
good.
can't be there right now.
Good, very good. Okay. So let's just go through these 4 reasons. The first one is, if heaven is inside the universe, this universe that we now enjoy, then that places heaven, including God who is seated in heaven, within time and space. Because when we think of this universe, there is space, but there's also time, because wherever there is space, there is time. So then you have to ask, then who created time and space for God to be seated in his little abode? Who created that time and space to seat this God who is enjoying his place in heaven? The second is, if heaven, now suppose someone gets clever and they say, oh, actually, God is not in this universe. God is outside the universe. So how will we dispute this? Then we can say, if God is outside the universe, that means outside the time-space bound universe, then you can't call it a place in a location. You can't say then God is in a place in a location, because he is outside time and space. And you also can't say that you will get there in the future. Why? Because future relies on time. But since God is outside of time and space, then where is the point? Where's the question of getting there in the future? If God is, suppose God is in a physical plane, this is a third reason, that implies that God is with form. Because to be in a physical plane, which occupies a certain space, then whoever occupies it also has to be at least smaller than the place that occupies him. So then, if God is a form, the next question is, what form should I give him? Male or female? Is he black? Is he Asian? Like, what country is he from, right? So all of these questions then come up, like about the characteristics. Now the fourth reason is, suppose you say that God is within time, space, and he has a form, then he cannot be omniscient. Because if he is in time and space with form, he can't be all present and all knowing. Think about that. In order to be all knowledge, you have to occupy everything. For example, right now, I only know what is going on in my room. Why? Because I only occupy as big as this room gets. I do not know what's going on in your room. Why? Because I'm not, as a person, omnipotent. I am not omnipresent. I am not everywhere. In other words, the moment you put yourself in a time-space boundary, immediately you cannot be all-knowing. Whereas the claim is, God is all-knowing. So in other words, the only way you can be all-knowing is if you occupy everything. If I occupied as much as Melbourne, suppose my mind is able to capture Melbourne, then it does occupy a lot more than it occupies now in the room, but it still doesn't occupy everything. In other words, the only way you can call yourself all-knowing is if you occupy everything, including your mind, my mind, everyone's mind, in every world, in every loka. So this means God thus has to be everywhere.
So does that mean that time and space must exist within God rather than God existing within time and space?
Yeah, so good. So Martin, he's always exactly in line with where I'm at. So now the question is, what is the proper understanding of this cause of the universe? The proper understanding is from which time, space, objects come. That's exactly what Martin was now bringing up. From which, that means it has to come before, has to exist before time, space, and objects. And not only exist before, but from which time, space, and objects themselves come. Because it is illogical to say that God, that is the creator, is sitting in a time and place somewhere, yet time and space is yet to come. Then where was he before time and space came? In other words, the logic breaks down if we start thinking in this time and space and somewhere else out there. So let's ask, what is the cause? What exactly is this cause of the universe? So we now talked about the where. Let's talk about the what. The Upanishads say that the cause of the universe is both the efficient cause and the material cause. So let's talk about, what does this mean? In order to put anything together, you need two causes. Think about this. First, you need the efficient or the intelligent cause. They're one and the same words. This is in Sanskrit called nimitta karanam. This means the maker with knowledge and skills. In order to create this pot with a certain structure and shape, you need a maker who understands pottery, who also understands how long to bake this inside the oven. So this means all knowledge pertinent to making the pot has to be known by the pot maker. That pot maker thus becomes the efficient or the intelligent cause, nimitta karanam. The second is the material cause, upadana karanam. This means I need the material from which I will make the pot, from which I will exercise my intelligence and create a corresponding object. This means the material also needs to be present in order for the final product to come. So in the case of a pot, just to make this clear, the pot maker is the efficient cause. In this case, he or she does have limited knowledge, no doubt. And the material itself, that is the clay, that is the material cause. Now, what about the universe? What about the entire? Because we just talked about one single object. So now let's extend this idea onto the entire universe. What is the efficient cause for the entire universe? If the pot maker is only limited to knowing pottery skills, then if all objects within the universe consist of millions and millions of objects, what does that mean? Then the cause of the universe has to know not only about making of the pot, but also about how to make your body, also how to put your cells together, also how to keep the 4 seasons running, also how to revolve the earth around the stars, also how to create a big supernova, also how to coordinate the birds, the fish, the tigers, the cats, everything, how to digest your food. In other words, when it comes to the macrocosm, then the all knowledge, all power becomes the efficient cause. The one from whom no talent is excluded. That means all talents that we have, my talent, your talent, everyone's talent, is that within the universe? Yes. In other words, and what is the universe? All knowledge. In other words, all of that is just a portion of all knowledge expressed through the vehicle of the person, through a bird, through a monkey, through whatever organism. Now, what about the material? So we'll ask now, where did all knowledge get its material from? Because it's easy to use a pot, right? We say, well, the pot maker just went to the earth and he got some clay and he made this pot. So it seems like the pot maker borrowed the material in order to create. But now, what about the total? So does this now mean that all knowledge borrowed material from somewhere else? So let's investigate this idea. Let's first rule out improbabilities. Why, if you say that the material is gotten from elsewhere, then let's just see why you cannot get material from elsewhere. So if the material already exists, suppose you say, that the material is gotten from elsewhere. What does this mean? Suppose now you say God got material from elsewhere. You can't say that. Why can you not say that? Because creation hasn't yet come. In other words, I can't say that material has been borrowed from elsewhere Because when you're going to get that material, there's no creation yet to come. In fact, if you look at the, the Big Bang theory, the Planck time, Planck length, when the first creation came, where are you going to get your material from? There's nothing to borrow from. So suppose now you say material already exists. There are two problems. So the question is, all knowledge borrowed material from somewhere else. Now, suppose you say the material already exists. There's a problem with this. It implies that creation is already there. But we know at some point there was no creation. So we ruled that out. Now, suppose you say somebody else created the material. What does this mean? It means that another God created the material for this God to use. Now you have to ask, then which God is true? Is the material God true? Or is the all knowledge God true? And to which one should I worship? Now, the moment you bring two gods in, it produces another problem, time and space. Because the moment you bring two, then what is that space in between to host God 1 and God 2? So now you have to bring a third God who created time and space. So now which God is true? The material God, the intelligence God, or the time and space God? The moment you bring in 3, you have still not gotten rid of time and space. In other words, the moment you introduce two-ness, there is an ad infinitum of problems that cannot be solved. Okay. So what's the only logical possibility now, if you have understood what I said?
They are both the same.
Yeah, okay, good. So they're both in the same. So the only logical possibility is that the material cannot be distinct from the efficient cause. They're not two, they're one. Okay, it's impossible to think of material unless you also think of what? The intelligence which created that material. Because it's not a blob of, just the material itself, you have to have some intelligence. Even if it's just some blob with spikes. What does spikes imply? An intelligence. There's an intelligence of spikiness. So wherever there is material, there is simultaneously an intelligence in that material. And this one cause that we're speaking of, which is both the material cause and the intelligence cause, is called Ishvara. Therefore, from now on, we will stick with the word Ishvara. So what is Ishvara? All knowledge, all power. In a form of what? Material cause and intelligence cause. Where is this Ishvara that we're talking about? Again, if you think of a pot maker, the pot maker can be away from the pot, right? He's not here. But I am enjoying the pot maker's product, but the pot maker is not with me. But in the example of Ishvara, both the material and the intelligence, they are inseparable. Meaning you can't have the material without simultaneously Ishvara being there also. Now think about your own body, your own hand. Is it material? Yeah, flesh. That means what? Ishvara is in your very own body right now. Think about your room. Look around your room right now. What do you see? Objects. Where do those objects come from? Earth. Dug up from earth. Earth is what? A material. So wherever we look, whatever we experience, it is only Ishvara in a form of all knowledge, all power, expressing as form and also expressing as intelligence, which puts that form together so that that form can be a useful functioning organism endowed with those orders that we talked about earlier: biological order, psychological order, geographical order, and physiological order, and so on. Thus, the organisms come together. So, Ishvara is everywhere. Yes, ma'am.
So are we saying that Ishvara is all knowledge and all power?
So, Ishvara means all knowledge, all power. Yeah. In other words, the
So then,
material cause and the efficient cause.
when you use the term intelligence in this entire discussion, like what does it mean?
Intelligence.
Ishvara?
Yeah, so all knowledge, intelligence means the intelligence behind what puts things together. For just, look at your own a flower. A flower grows, there's a photosynthesis, there's a aroma. So this entire, process from growth all the way to a full flower, at every step of the way, it implies what? An intelligence. That means it's taking the sunlight, it's consuming the rain, it is now exuding the aroma when the flower blooms at a certain point in time. All of this is intelligence to keep that process running.
Which is equal to all knowledge, all power, which
Yes.
is equal to Ishvara, right?
Yes. So when we say intelligence, that is on the level of observing the intelligence which is taking place. When we say, where is that intelligence coming from? From all knowledge, all power, called Ishvara. The question is now, having explained this, why do we miss Ishvara? Why do we miss the presence of Ishvara? The answer is because all of our attention goes on material objects through the means of a microscope, in our labs, underneath, our discussions, in our institutions. But not only that, but it also goes and analyzes physical orders. That's why you have, physics. It's entirely on the basis of not only observing the orders that are taking place, but also what is inside objects themselves. So therefore, we miss out on the intelligence, Mina again, intelligence, which puts those forms together. Think about it. The intelligence which puts those forms together. It's easy to see a cell and another cell, but it is a different story now when you change your question. You go, what made the cell what it is so that it's able to function intelligently and defer or to reject viruses which are trying to injure the nervous system?
But this is in itself is all knowledge and all power. Then we are not missing anything, it means.
Yeah, so it's all knowledge, all power expressed through different forms like a cell. And we can see that all knowledge, all power just in a cell itself. We can see that all knowledge, all power like the sun evaporating the water. And then
so when you say that we are missing, it means we are missing the process, how it
we
got into.
we are missing on the question, what puts these forms together so that this form called the cell can now do its function, which I will get to, Mina, very soon. So take the sun, for example. What does it do? It evaporates the water. The water then creates clouds. Through the process of precipitation, rain falls onto a mountain. The mountain then creates a river. The river is then producing drinkable water for the human organism or the animal to drink, thus to sustain its life. So at every step of the way, the sun, the evaporation, the clouds, and then the clouds being blown by the winds onto the mountains, onto the trees so that the trees can grow, falling down, the gravity pulling the water down, creating rivers, crevices, and then the animals being able to drink that and then sustain life. Look at the intelligence behind every step of that way. So there's a perfect relationship between every interaction between both sentient and insentient. That means insentient like the water, and sentient, that is the animal who drinks that water. So the question was, then why do we miss out on this intelligence? The reason is because we don't ask the question, what is it that puts these forms together, which I will get into much more detail now.
And which is the nimitta karana.
Which is both the nimitta and upadana karana, because there is no material without the intelligence simultaneously.
But when we observe the rain and the other things that you mentioned,
yeah,
it's the upadan karan that we are looking at, because that's the material stuff.
Yeah, but you're also looking at upadana karana, the intelligent cause, the material within the rain. I mean, what is rain? It's just H2O. Now you break down H2O into atoms, particles, quarks, subatomic particles, string theory, and ultimately resolves into its element of space. So that in itself is divisible into multiple of smaller forms, which I'm going to now explain. So now, how do we then recognize Ishvara? How do we see Ishvara? We do it by the obvious intelligence that is present at every level, like I just explained. The intelligence that lifts that air, that lifts the water evaporates it into the cloud and falls and then creates water. That is intelligence in itself. Now in India, you would probably know, why do we put a sacred thread around a tree in India? You seen that? Put a sacred thread around a tree. What's the symbolism of that? It acknowledges, yes? It's
some sort of fertility thing, isn't it?
It's a kind of union with the form of a tree and human life.
I mean, it's just like you're taking a sacred thread. It's actually a religious ceremony, and you just kind of embellish the tree with this sacred thread. What does this mean? The symbolism is, I acknowledge the intelligence which makes this form what it is. That means I acknowledge the intelligence which makes this tree a tree. And to that intelligence, I do my namaskara. You don't need to go to a temple and do your namaskara to Ishvara. Just go outside in your bush, do a namaskara to your tree, because there is a very intelligence that made that tree what it is. In its different combination, the roots spreading in a different way, being spread out just long enough to hold it against strong winds. That also is an intelligence. So the intelligence doesn't make mistakes. It doesn't say, oh, oops, I made a mistake. I should have made these roots longer so it doesn't get blown away so easy. Another is, why do you put a tika, or it's called a tilaka on your forehead in India? What's the symbolism of that? It's a beautiful symbolism, actually.
Sort of signifies the third eye.
What was that?
It's to activate the Gyan Chakra, the third eye.
Okay.
There are many reasons, you know.
Yeah, okay. Vedantic reason. Okay.
It's a symbol of auspiciousness, that we actually wake up with the understanding that it's very auspicious to be alive, and also in the situation we're in.
Yeah, good. So that auspiciousness is the recognition that there is presence of Ishvara in this very form. It's to remind me that I am never away from this all knowledge, all power, which is endowing this very body, which is seeking that power in this. It's right here, right now. And I thus never forget that. So I put a tika or a tilika, depends from which country or which part of India you're from. So if you don't know Ishvara, then what's the problem? Then we disrespect our body because we think Ishvara is somewhere away. But the very body that we're carrying right now is Ishvara itself in the form of this body. So it causes a very different relationship to not only yourself, but also to the people you deal with. Because before it was a question of it's me versus you. But now you're only seeing this all knowledge, all power expressing itself as the material and intelligent cause in the form of body, in the form of words, in the form of hair, in the form of eyes, in the form of words, in the form of language, in the form of legs, in the form of the air that's being breathed. So this means our entire relationship changes with the world when this knowledge is understood, which is why it's not just about going, what's the nature of I, and that is consciousness, but there's so much more to it about appreciating the world in itself to being the expression of this all knowledge, all power. Okay, now the question will be, if Ishvara is present everywhere, then I should be able to see Ishvara. Let's create that question. So the problem is, I only see mountains. I only see trees. I only see people. I only see table, wood, clouds. Why do I not see Ishvara? And I think this is now going to address Mina's question. So now let's analyze a mountain. When you say the word mountain, what do you mean when you say the word mountain? Tell me. Mountain, wow. What did you mean when you said that?
Say that it's quite big, you know, bigger than us.
Okay, Good start.
The uniqueness, we appreciate the uniqueness of that particular object
Okay.
or the differences.
Okay, good. I like the word big. We'll start with the word big. Large.
Yes.
Okay, so when we say mountain, wow, mountain, what do you mean? What you really meant was, I'm seeing something that is large and rocky. So why did you say mountain? Because it's a lot more efficient to say mountain than it's large and rocky, and it consists of rocks, it consists of trees, and it consists of earth. And it's elevated, let's say 5,000 kilometers above sea level. Or you just say mountain. Which one would you prefer? Mountain, right? In other words, if you look at a mountain, it is nothing but word plus more words. Word rock plus word trees plus word earth. Now you break down, let's just take one word, take the word rock. What is a rock? Now when you say rock, what do you actually mean when you say rock? Same question as when when I asked about the mountain. Well, what I really meant when I said rock was, it's actually minerals, because a rock is nothing but minerals, combination of one of the five periodic table of elements. But when you say minerals, what do you mean by that? Well, what I meant was atoms. What do you mean by that? Well, if you look deeper into atoms, what do you see? Subatomic particles, neutrons, protons, electrons. What do you mean by that? Well, it's quarks. What do you mean by that? Well, it's actually, if you want to go deeper and you analyze string theory, it's just a bunch of intelligent strings acting within space itself. And then you ultimately resolve however small you want to go, into space itself. That is the subtlest of the subtlest that you can get. That's why in the Upanishads, the smallest element, the subtlest element is space. So the mountain is not really as real as you think, if you look at it this way. We call it now a mountain, but now we got to rocks, and then we got to minerals, and now we're talking about quarks. What happened here? In other words, we looked through the form and we found that every form that you look at, it resolves into a smaller component. And if you go up, then you put those smaller components and you create a larger assembly. You put together electrons, protons, neutrons, and you create atoms. You put atoms together in an intelligent fashion to create molecules. You create molecules, put them in intelligent fashion to create cells. You create cells, put them together in intelligent fashion to create not the heart, but the liver. Not the liver, but the kidneys. Not the kidneys, but the tongue. And you put those organs together in an intelligent fashion to create what you finally call a human being. And not only that, but then you endow this organism called the human being, which consists of multiple organs, with the capacity to be self-reflective, self-conscious of itself, so it can think about its own ability and also its ability in response to the environment, which also consists of multiple forms at every successive level that you look at. Rock, minerals, etc., etc. So there's a perfect relationship and an intelligence at every level that you look at it. Now, what enables these successive assemblies of each name and form? Like when I say name and form, I'm talking about name form liver, name form tissue, name form muscle, name form bone. Okay, so all of these are name forms. So the question is, what enables the successive assembly of each of these name forms to create a larger form, which putting it together creates the total form, which then you can see and you go, oh, human being, body, oh, mountain. The Gita says the putting together principle is not an object. Why is it not an object? Because we just looked at the mountain. Whatever object you see, you can look deeper into its smaller components until you arrive to space itself. In other words, the only putting together principle that is left is intelligence, all intelligence. So this means, what does this now mean in overall? It means that the all intelligence pervades each successive assembly of subatomic particle, of atom, of molecule, of cell, of liver, of body, not only your body, but every body in the universe, both celestial bodies, insect bodies, and mammal bodies, all bodies, bodies of the earth, bodies of the tree, bodies of the leaves, that self also is a body. And this also now applies to both sentient and insentient. Because we often think, oh, okay, so there's only intelligence in a sentient being, like a person. But if you look at it through the all intelligence, which puts assemblies together, then you realize even a rock itself is sentient. So if you look at it from the Upanishadic level, from the standpoint of Upanishads, then you see, even if I look at something like a wall, something that is completely inert and insentient, now it is not as inert and insentient as it was. Now I'm seeing it as a mineral, as an element, which itself consists of going down to the subatomic particles. But then you ask, what put these particles together to create what I now call rock? And that intelligence is no different that created the wall. That is the same intelligence that is sustaining you, the human body, right now. So where's the question between a human being and a rock and a wall? You might as well just start speaking to a wall. You're speaking to the one intelligence only. In other words, all around me, there is only one intelligence expressing as different forms. But if I investigate inside that form, you come to the same conclusion: all knowledge, all power, which we call Ishvara. So again, no such thing as insentient. So this means when I see through the eye of wisdom, according to the Upanishads, I can see that all around me is only God expressing itself as material cause and intelligence cause. So now the question is, what is this eye of wisdom? Okay, so this eye of wisdom, when I say eye of wisdom, I'm just saying about how deeply you can look into things. Now, this depth is divided into, there's 3 levels of depth that I can see as a human being. Let's take a common man depth example. Now, when I say common man, I'm just mean like an ordinary person who's not interested in Vedanta or anything, just an ordinary person. An ordinary person has 2 levels of sight. The first is subjectivity. So this means I superimpose my opinion onto the world. We're all familiar with this. In other words, what's out there is a rope, but what do I see? I see a snake. And when I see a snake, what happens then? All of my decisions, my words, everything I say and do and decide is on the basis of the snake and not the rope. So this means it changes my response to the world. Why? Because I'm living in a subjective wisdom, through a subjective eye. Now, we all have this going on at some area or another in our life. You will truly never get rid of subjectivity completely. So it's not like the wise person is completely free of subjectivity and everything they say is right and just listen to them. This is why there is a level of common sense. So this really redefines when you say, what is a wise person? What do you mean by a wise person? What are they also subject to subjectivity? Likely, yes. So this means that one also needs to use their own thinking in respect to what's being heard. Okay, because there's always this problem of subjectivity in one way or the other. So for example, if I ask you, what do you think about COVID? Everyone's going to say something different, right? That is subjectivity. Some people say it's the best thing that's happened to me. Some people say it should have not happened. All of these opinions is subjectivity. Now, what happens when this common man goes into objective mode? What happens is then someone says, excuse me, fella, that is not a snake. What you're actually seeing is a rope. And then the common fella says, you're right. Actually, I thought it looked like a snake. It had a little cobra head. Man, it was such a good one. Okay, that is a rope. So now the person has come into a level of objectivity. Subjectivity into objectivity. But what happens now? The person doesn't question further. They go, okay, so that is a rope. So this means my depth stops at superficial perception. This is called common human level, 99% of the cases, objectivity that we live in today. This means I don't take the time to look deeper, even if someone tells me it's actually not a snake, it is a rope. And I just accept it on the basis of blind belief. Even if it is true, I still don't look further. Now, what is the second depth of objectivity? This is where quantum physics comes in. What they will say is, well, even though it is a rope, it is actually nothing but, it's a categorization of yarn. And then the yarn is actually fibers. And then the fibers is actually protons and neutrons. So this means the quantum physics level will then further break down what I see into a smaller component. In other words, we don't need Vedanta to look deeper into any organism. We don't need Vedanta to tell us that a mountain is actually rock. The rock is actually minerals. The minerals is actually atoms. The atom is actually particles. So then why do we need Vedanta? Even though this second level of objectivity is highly advanced and it does need a lot of thinking. So now what place does Vedanta Upanishads have in respect to the three levels of objectivity? So now the Upanishads comes and says, if you look into any object, including a particle, you ask, number one, where did it come from? And two, which is actually not a big deal. This is what level 2 of depth will say. This is what the quantum physicists will say. Where did this rock come from? It came from minerals. Where did the minerals come from? It came from atoms, etc. But the second question you ask is, how did the components which this object is made of, how do they organize themselves so that the atoms become cells? Cells become a body of a fish or a body of a human. What caused them to organize themselves intelligently to create the final product? This is where the Upanishads now come. So what does the Upanishads say? What's the Upanishadic level of depth or vision? That means eyes, that means through my eyes of wisdom, I recognize Ishwara's all knowledge is in and through all manifestations at every level that I investigate, whether the level of atom, proton, neutron, on every level, that intelligence is there because it is required to create a successive assembly of the next form. Okay, take a break, please. Breathe in, breathe out.
Thank you. Did we answer the question that why we do not see the presence of Ishvara, or why we forget the presence of Ishvara? We started with that question.
Yeah, we said because the vision is on investigating not only the forms, but the orders. But we don't ask the question, what makes those orders and forms connect intelligently so they all have an intelligent interaction between each other? Like the rain has an intelligent interaction with the plants. The sunlight energy has an intelligent interaction with the vegetable kingdom through the process of photosynthesis. So what made specifically that photosynthesis there to interact with the sun?
Mm-hmm.
And we also answered it. This is because we don't ask what organizes the smaller components to create larger assemblies. Like what organizes atoms to create a cell? What organizes a cell to create specifically a liver?
And the answer to all these questions would be that intelligence.
Say again?
And the answer to all those questions would be that intelligence makes it possible, right?
Yeah, intelligence makes it possible. Yeah, at every level.
And then can intelligence be felt or seen or like perceived?
We also,
because even though we stop at the conclusion that okay, there is some intelligence that is working behind all these factors.
Yeah.
But unless and until I see it, perceive it, observe it.
Yeah, we just said, actually, we explained that you can see it at every level. You can see it in the process of photosynthesis. That is in itself an intelligence which is designed to absorb energy, sunlight, into energy of the plant. It's a process. That is, there's an intelligence there which is making use of the energy.
Andre, the simple thing, as a child, I always got fascinated with cows. because they ate grass. I used to ask myself, they ate grass, they drank water, and yet their milk is so pure white. How does that is produced? And that's where my inquiry started in a cow, because we had one cow.
Yeah.
So I grew up very fascinated with that, and I thought no man can make that. No scientist in the world can make that.
Yeah.
Mix grass and water and have milk.
That's what we're talking
so
about.
that is when I realized there is God, there is a bigger power than all of us.
Yeah,
not so much looking at myself, but more at the animal.
Yeah, but that's actually a good example. Just, the milk itself, a cow eats grass and consumes water and gives something healthy as milk. And this milk is then further consumable by a living organism. So this itself, the process of clearing up this, the water and the food to produce milk, that is also an intelligence.
Mm.
Or even if you, put a fruit and it consumes dirty water, it was still going to purify that water into pure water. That is also an intelligence. The purification process is an intelligence. Okay, let's continue the inquiry. Now, the question is, how do you demonstrate that Ishvara is intelligent cause and the material cause simultaneously? How do we see that? The Upanishads gives us two examples. First is there's an example of a spider. Now think about a spider. Out of the spider comes what? The web. Now it's just some random redundant web. Does it just like spit out web and goes, I'm having fun? It doesn't. Every process of making the web, there's an intelligence behind it. That means it doesn't make a useless web. In fact, it doesn't even take a break. It just makes the web. So whatever material comes out of it is simultaneously endowed with an intelligent design behind it. So in that same way, we can know Ishvara to be not only the material cause, but also the efficient cause, which makes this universe. But it doesn't just make the universe, but there's an intelligence behind the making. In fact, the spider doesn't even rest. It doesn't create a hammock. It just takes a break. Enough of this web making business. I'm just going to take a break. So every moment, every fraction of a second that the spider outputs its web, there is an intelligent intention behind it. It knows what it's making. And the other example is if you take a person of a dream, like take yourself, for example, right now. Let's talk about you first, because it's always easy to relate that way. Right now in you, there is a power and intelligence to project a dream world. No doubt. But when the dream comes, the question is from where do those dream objects, from what are those dream objects made? Like space-time, events, people, mountains, rivers. Where did that come from? From you. So this means the person becomes Ishvara of the dream world. You as a person literally become Ishvara every single night of your world, which is endowed with space and time, with objects, with people, with events, with classes, with COVID, with rivers, with all sorts of physical, biological, psychological, so many orders are all coming from the one person who is both the efficient and the material cause of his or her dream. So in that same way, Ishvara is both the material and the efficient cause of infinite names and forms, including you right now, me right now, the computer you're looking at, this earth you're looking at, the flowers outside, the sun, the moon. All of this resolves into this one intelligence. So through this dream example, we can see that just like the person who projects the world, which consists of many laws, intelligent laws, all of that resolves into that one person. Okay, now let's talk about the unmanifest. So far, I have been discussing the universe in general, like the manifest general universe. Let's talk about what came before the universe. Now, what about this, right, this immaterial and efficient cause before the universe actually came along? Firstly, we'll ask, what caused the Big Bang? Do we know? The scientists will tell you, no, we don't. Now, just because you don't know, it doesn't mean there's no answer. So this is again where the Upanishads and where the Gita comes in. So they say the same all knowledge, all power, which I just explained to you in the last 1 hour, that same all knowledge, all power was present even before the manifest universe. This means it remained in unmanifest, undifferentiated potential called Maya. So this means, again, all knowledge, all power, which is manifesting itself right now as infinite names and forms, which we call this universe, that same all knowledge, all power remains present in the unmanifest. It didn't go anywhere. It just remained in unmanifest. Now, so we're bringing a new word called Maya. So the question now is, what is the relationship between Maya and Ishvara? How do you now understand these two words? Think about it this way. Suppose there's a woman and she has a capacity to produce a child, but she doesn't. As long as that capacity is in her, she is called Maya. The moment that capacity gets exercised and she manifests a child, then she goes to the name change municipality and says, I want a name change. I want to be called Ishvara. So, but the woman hasn't gone anywhere. It's not like the woman is now different. She's still the same person. She still has a connection to her life 40 years ago, 20 years ago. She still has a connection before she manifested the child. So the woman remains the same, but she changes her name according to whether she has not produced or whether she has produced. But that potential was in her all along. And even when she produces a child, she still has a potential to produce another child. Okay, clear? I hope so. Okay.
You said she will be called Ishvara after she, creates the child.
Yes.
Right? Or the woman is called Ishvara all along the way.
Woman is
before,
called,
like when she has the potential, when the child is created.
Yeah, before the child is
all
created.
levels are only after that.
Yeah, before the child is created, she has a potential in her. It's not like she doesn't. She always has a potential. And when that
But she's not Ishvara at that time.
She's not Ishvara. So she is Maya. Okay. She's called Maya when that potential is not exercised, when that potential is in her.
Okay.
Okay, so now you know the relationship between Maya and Ishvara. It's not important to understand. It is not like Maya and Ishvara are two different entities. They are one all knowledge, all power. One is in unmanifest, one is in manifest. Okay. Okay, let's 10 more minutes, 15 more minutes, plus minus. Yes, Robert.
Is Maya an attribute of Brahman?
Repeat.
Is Maya an attribute of Brahman?
Yes, however, I don't want to get into that topic now because that will come later after covering Ishvara. She's not an attribute of Brahman. She's not apart from Brahman. The nature of Brahman is limitless. That limitless power is Maya. So it's not like they're two different components. I will cover Brahman later. Okay, any confusion so far? Meena, talk.
So this woman is also all knowledge and all power, right?
Yeah.
But during the unmanifested stage, it's Maya. And after manifestation, it's Ishvara.
Yes, but the woman is still the same. She hasn't lost anything.
Correct. She is the common factor.
Yeah, she's
All
a common
knowledge, all
yeah.
power.
Yeah, just like the person is still the same whether the dream is no longer true or whether the dream comes. The person is never affected by the dream. In the same way, all knowledge, all power is never affected by whatever is produced.
Isn't Maya an apparent of Ishvara?
Apparent.
Apparent.
I've never heard that before.
It's actually, I mean, it is Ishvara still. It's just that in not unmanifested state it's called Maya. In manifested state it's called Ishvara. So it's just apparent. It appears like Maya, isn't it?
No, no. Specifically in Vedanta, unmanifest all knowledge, all power equals Maya. Manifest all knowledge, all power, which we're experiencing right now, is called Ishvara. So when we say the word God, all you're referring to is all knowledge, all power that is being expressed in a form of material and intelligence. Okay. Doubts? By the way, has this session been overwhelming? I want to know.
No, it's been beautiful. Thank you, Andre. It's been fantastic.
Thank you very much. I need to know.
It is overwhelming, actually.
Say again, Mina?
It is overwhelming because there were a lot of new concepts which were hard to grasp.
Okay.
I think it's been terrific for this session.
To me, it was great. It's great also. Very good.
Okay.
For us, I think we've been through with you, Andre, so we are reviving it again.
Yeah.
Revising and stimulating again.
Yeah, because I was a little afraid that I'm gonna, this information dump. I know I'm aware of this, but I'm at the same time quite passionate about it. So
Andre, I think your arguments are in a way self-evident. I don't see how they can be negated, so it's made perfect sense to me.
Okay. Okay, so hold on, 15 more minutes and I'll complete this conversation. Okay, let's show us how is this all knowledge true even before the universe? Because I've just said now, I made a statement, all knowledge, all power is true even before the universe came. Your next question is how? Demonstrate to us. We can start out with a simple statement. You cannot have something come from nothing. Something means this universe. This universe is a something. It is a thing. It is many things. You cannot find one thing in this universe that comes from nothing. So that's the first argument. Just look at your reality right now around you. Everything is constantly shifting from unmanifest to manifest. There's no such thing as a static experience in this world. Seasons are changing, your days are changing, your time is changing, seconds are going. Everything's changing. That is one fact that is unavoidable. So what is change imply? It is going from one state to the other. It was like this, now it's no longer like that, now it's like this. This means there is a manifest, unmanifest ratio constantly undergoing. Or take, for example, something more relatable. Yesterday's dream, we're talking about your dream right now. I hope, whether you remember your dream or not, that's a different story. But just suppose you remember your dream. Yesterday's dream was manifest while it was manifest. But is it manifest now? No. So it's no longer present. However, while you, that means the Ishvara of the dream, while it was manifest, you are still present right now. So that whole world, which consisted of so many lovely experiences, parties and COVID and conversations like this, and sometimes overwhelming, right? And so on. So much drama, you go, oh, I'm getting old, 60, 50, I'm almost gonna die. All of that consisted in that one dream. In 1 second, it is all gone. Are you gone? No. So this means you are now still the same person that you were when that dream was undergoing its many, many changes. Now, while you are still here, you're still here, but the dream is yet to manifest tonight, isn't it? So there's a world awaiting to manifest, but you, the person, are still perfectly fine. The one from whom the dream is to arise, the efficient and the material cause of the dream yet to come. Tomorrow is yet to come. This means tomorrow is unmanifest. Is tomorrow here now? No. Tomorrow is tomorrow. So tomorrow is unmanifest. But when tomorrow comes, it will be manifest, but today will be unmanifest. Not only that, but the intelligence which we're talking about will carry over whatever has happened today onto tomorrow. If I said one thing today, then there will be a consequence carried over tomorrow. But from the standpoint of today, the consequence remains in potential. This is what we call sanchita karma. All of the karmas stored yet to be expressed when tomorrow comes, when a new life comes. So the question is, what keeps track of all of the karma, all of the consequences, all of the actions of not only you, me, fish, bird, season, bacteria, virus, every cell, billions of cells are all kept track of. What keeps that going on the next consecutive second? What connects the manifest to the unmanifest potential? What connects today to tomorrow? Are you doing that? Are you the one who's going to be connecting today to tomorrow? No. What does that? The intelligence in whom all manifestations and unmanifestations are coming and going. Mina?
Yes.
Okay. So let's apply this same logic in 10 minutes to the universe before time, space itself began, before there was anything. There's nothing right now. In order for something to come like this universe, it implies okay, so this universe is what? Remember those orders I talked about? Full of orders and laws, physical, biological, ecological, epistemological, etc. In order for this universe to come governed by intelligence laws implies that there was an intelligence, all knowledge, all power, from which it has come. It's simple as that. And not only has it come from this intelligence, but also this intelligence is the form from which it came. That means this potential form, that is potential material and potential intelligence, are both causes of the universe that we're experiencing right now. In fact, it is because of this order that we can observe in this universe that the cosmologists and the astronomers can trace back what's called Planck length and Planck time. So in just summary, Planck length means the shortest possible distance. That means the smallest of the smallest, 10 to the negative 33 of a meter. So if you take a meter and you divide it by, and you go 0.0000000, many zeros, 1, the shortest distance possible. So look at your keyboard right now, the key, like H. You see that key? Imagine a universe smaller than that. When it all began, the universe was much smaller than your little keyboard on there. 10 to the negative 43 of a second. So imagine many zeros, 1 second. That is how far we can trace back when creation began. Why can we trace that back through quantum physics? Because there's an order. Through observation, we can infer and we can come up to certain conclusions. So let's close finally. So many yawns. Okay.
Sorry to butt in, Andre.
Yes.
Clarification. Is there a reason why Maya manifests itself into Ishwar, or it's just it just happens?
Yeah, the reason is because it's got to do with karma and dharma. So in order for beings to continue expressing their unfinished business, you need to create a new universe. Just like tomorrow, Kritika, is going to come because you haven't finished your business today. In fact, when tomorrow comes, Kritika, what are you going to do? You're going to do things that are related to today, right? In other words, you need tomorrow to finish your today's business. So if you haven't said, you know, I love you to your hubby, or, you know, you haven't hugged, then you will go, oh, I need to do this tomorrow. And then you will get it tomorrow and you will get a nice, you know, a little hug there. So in other words, why do we have the universe? Because the collective karma of all people, of all individuals, are yet to be finished, and they will never get finished. Thus a universe gets created. Yes, Mautik?
Andre, just like in the example of dream, when we dream, the material cause of the dream is our mind, which and the memories.
Yeah.
And we are the intelligent cause. Can we say that Maya is the cause of the universe, the material cause, and Ishvara is the intelligent cause, knowing that Maya and Ishvara both are the same? Can we say that?
No, I explained very well what Maya is. Maya and Ishvara are exactly the same. All knowledge, all power. That's it.
Okay. I was just trying to extrapolate this example and try to understand better.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so because of this unmanifest, and I'll close in 5 minutes. Because of this manifest and unmanifest, it means that creation is cyclical. So this means there's infinite cycles of creation going constantly from creation to dissolution, creation to dissolution. So when we talk about this universe, 13.7 billion years, which the scientists have come up with, we're only talking about one single story in infinite cycles of creation. And here we are, human beings, going, oh, 5 minutes. So I need to, come on, finish up, Andre. 2 minutes, 1 minute. Now, imagine this, 13.7 billion years is like a little dot in infinite cycles of creation of universes that were coming and going. And we just find ourselves in one of those cycles, which we now are experiencing in this moment. Therefore, there is no question of what came first. What came first, the tree or the seed? The chicken or the egg, right? A nice dinner time question. What came first, the father or the son? The reason we cannot think like this is because the mind is trying to put a beginning to creation. But we now know there is no beginning. It is manifest, unmanifest, manifest, unmanifest. In other words, in reality, there is an intelligence in potential from which the seed comes. If you take a seed right now, can you see a tree inside it? No. But inside that seed, there is an intelligence which is consisting of fruits, branches, the process of photosynthesis, how much the roots are to extend, where is it to grow, how is it to ward off competition from other plants, how high is it to grow, how deep is it to go. All of that intelligence is inside one single seed, and that seed has that capacity to produce a lovely creation called a tree. In fact, in chapter 15 of the Bhagavad Gita, you will see that creation is turned as a tree. Krishna will give us a nice tree example of creation. So this means in that same way, Maya is as though a seed in which not only a tree is there, but the knowledge of you as a person, knowledge of calcium, knowledge of iron, knowledge of gold, knowledge of all of the elements, fire, space, water, earth, all that knowledge in one single seed called Maya, all knowledge, all power. So the question is, what connects unmanifest yesterday to manifest today? Unmute. If you do well, I will close. What connects unmanifest yesterday to manifest today?
Karma. Karma.
Karma.
Oh no, don't let me extend this. I need proper...
Intelligence.
Who said that? Okay, they're too humble. They don't want to reveal who said that. Okay, good. What connects unmanifest tomorrow to manifest today?
Intelligence.
Oh, last question. Okay, let the drums roll. What connects the unmanifest creation to this manifest universe, which we're now enjoying and being at the fancy of watching this webinar?
Maya?
No.
Is it Maya?
Intelligence.
No. Intelligence. Someone saved us. Intelligence. In all three cases, there is all knowledge, all power, all around us. At every level that you see, all knowledge, all power.
Yeah,
Okay.
but Andre,
Yes.
why? What's the purpose
Yeah, Kritika
of
asked.
creation and dissolution and creation and dissolution?
Yeah, Kritika just asked the same question. Explained. Okay, I'm going to put this next week. Purpose. Okay, purpose, no problem. We answer purpose next week. Okay, so next week, okay, what have I shown you so far? What has this whole, conversation of a lot of overwhelming details been about? It is to show you that there is all intelligence manifesting as laws and orders, which are in the form of this universe. That's what I've shown you. To appreciate and to recognize this intelligence. The question was how to recognize it? As the intelligence which sustains and upholds laws and orders which we are experiencing. What I haven't answered is, what is the relationship between this world and Ishvara? I've only talked about Ishvara and Maya. But what about the world that we're experiencing now? What is its relationship? If you take, for example, your hand right now, look at your hand. What is the relationship between that hand and Ishvara? This is an important question because it is the key to solving the equation to the vision of oneness. We will get into Satya Mithya teaching next week. You had your hand up there, Rani? Oh, okay, you were just showing me your hand. Okay.
I was just showing my hand.
Yeah, with 5 fingers. You see, that's an intelligence in itself. Okay. Okay, any final concluding comments?
I just wanted to thank you because it was really a great lesson today. I like clicks a lot of things on me. It was really good. Thank you.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear. That's very nourishing for me because I really never know. I always think that everyone's angry with me and come back.
Never. There's so much here.
Okay.
I'm just a bit confused now. You say that there is some pending karma, like the reason for this creation. So does that sort of imply that we're never going to get moksha? Because
no.
always if
there's
always going to be something pending that results.
True. Excellent. 10 out of 10 question. Okay, so Kritika wants to get out of this disillusion and creation. That's why she has this question. She wants the way out. She's looking for the door. So I guess so, Kritika.
I'm very depressed looking at getting that door.
No, don't worry about it. So it's true. Every life, you do create tons of karma. Even if you try to do the best that you can, you still hurt ants that you step on accidentally. So by definition, you should be doing prayashchitta karma, which is the act of forgiving every single evening for hours, forgiving all of the bacteria that your own cells have destroyed, because that's also a living organism. That's also himsa, right? So just by being alive, you're creating lots of karma. So how to get out of this process? The thing is, you can't as a person, but to whom does this karma belong? To Kritika's body, mind, or to I? Yeah, you see now the reason why we need to disidentify, or to not to dis, but to shift, move our identities from that which hosts this karma, which will never end, and to that which is free of karma. For example, remember how I said in the beginning, people walk in the room and they start now having this argument, and it's like a hot conversation. Now, is the light affected by that? No. So the light remains completely independent. So as long as my identity remains with this individual, then I will keep on creating new karma. I will keep on not only creating, but also trying to get rid of it. But if I disassociate in a form of shifting my identity through understanding that I am that in whose presence karma is also known, then you put an end to that process. That's what we call moksha.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so practically speaking, how will Kritika put an end to this depression, to this process? Very simple. She will take time to assimilate this teaching. She will continue listening. And when the nature of that I is shifted onto the self, onto consciousness, then automatically you burn up the causal body. You burn up the process which still links me to the causal body, to that body which causes a new body. This is actually a much more different nature of a conversation that is covered in the Gita, which I will obviously continue speaking of. But in summary, Kritika, the whole point of moksha is not just to put an end to this process of having to be reborn, but also to just enjoy your freedom, a sense of freedom while living.
All right, thank you. Thanks a lot.
This is why Vedanta, by the way, makes a positive assertion. This is the difference between Buddhism and Vedanta, important distinction. Buddhism uses the process of nihilism, that is negation. So I will, in other words, tell you who you are not, but I will never make a positive assertion who you are. Because nihilism means that you cannot describe consciousness, but Vedanta disagrees with this. Consciousness is everything. So whatever I say actually points to consciousness. Whereas Vedanta makes it very clear. When I disassociate, when I shift my identity from this body to the I, and I'm firm in it, that is a growing clarity, remember, it's not a one-off, it's a growing clarity. Then when this body leaves, as it will one day, then what's the definition of the reality? Sat Chit Ananda. In other words, I am consciousness, which is eternal. And what's the nature of that consciousness? Ananda. It is full, limitless, blissful, whole, complete. Nothing is missing. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha, Sarve Santu Niramayaha, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschit Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.